I'm Danielle Balbi, the Deputy Web Editor here at The Real Deal, and I'm here with our senior reporter, Konrad Putzier, to talk about WeWork. So as of late, the company has been dipping its hand into so many different lines of business: a gym, a preschool, a real estate investment fund. Can you talk about its latest venture?
You really hit the nail on the head. I mean, they're pretty much in every business now, so maybe for some in the real estate industry, it wasn't surprising anymore that now they're also launching a brokerage. The news broke on Friday. So what they're basically going to do is Jason Bauer, who previously co-founded Voda Bauer, a real estate brokerage, is going to head WeWork Space Services. It's the name they're giving it. Officially, it's not called a brokerage company. They want to call it a real estate sort of services advisory company that also offers brokerage services. But it is, for all intents and purposes, brokerage is part of what it is. And what this firm will do is, whenever a company comes to WeWork and says, I want to rent a space at WeWork, they look at a bunch of locations, and then it turns out that the company doesn't actually find a space that they like and says, you know what, I'm not going to go to WeWork, I'll just go to like a traditional landlord. In those cases, WeWork can then say, well, why don't you use our in-house brokerage, and they can find you a space somewhere else. And the advantage for WeWork is, or the idea is, that if you do that, you sort of keep them within your reach. So you can still offer them some of your services, you can give them a discounted membership to the online WeWork member network. Maybe a couple of years later, if the company changes their mind, they can still go into a WeWork space. So from WeWork's perspective, that's sort of the draw, right? They want to win over more clients. And for now, it's going to be a small venture. I think the plan is like 10 to 12 brokers, but time will tell how big it'll get.
Right. And WeWork has obviously had a lot of success with some large tenants, namely IBM taking the full space at 88 University. This seems to be a part of its push to target smaller and mid-sized firms. Can you speak a little bit about why they're targeting those firms and why now?
Right. So when WeWork started off, it was a co-working company, right? And it still is. And co-working fundamentally, the basic idea is you offer desks, you offer workspaces to really small companies, freelancers, entrepreneurs who don't really have enough employees to like rent a whole office. That was sort of the initial thing. Then over the years, they added this enterprise program where they would go to big companies and say, hey, do you want us to manage your headquarters, or you have a satellite office in a new city, why don't you just rent a whole floor in a WeWork? So between these really small companies and these really big companies, they, slightly, according to my sources, a little bit neglected the mid-sized companies between 25, 200 employees. And so for WeWork, this new brokerage is part of a whole push where they want to do more to appeal to these mid-sized tenants. So they're doing that by offering them brokerage services where WeWork can now help you find a space in a non-WeWork building.
Right, and that totally makes sense. Obviously, WeWork isn't the only company in this space. I think the timing of this launch is pretty interesting, right? Because Knotel has been signing leases at such a fast rate, just was valued at $500 million the other month. What do you think the timing has to do with this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right? Like, why now? Why not a year ago?
Yeah.
Why not a year from now? WeWork insists that this isn't about Knotel or any competitor. They're sort of saying, we're just looking at ourselves. This is, we don't care what other people do. But I have to think that it has to have something to do with Knotel's rise, because Knotel has been growing pretty aggressively. I think they're at 1 million square feet now across dozens of locations in New York City. And they've specifically targeted this sort of mid-sized segment.
So on the whole, how could this new leasing venture change the game for WeWork? They're already in a market where they control so much space.
Right. It could, I guess it all depends on how big this will get, right? If it's a really small niche thing, if it's just a dozen brokers, they help a couple of small companies find businesses, it's not going to be a game changer for WeWork. But if hypothetically this becomes a big thing, and they end up with thousands of customers, dozens or even hundreds of brokers, then you really have to start wondering about what this does to WeWork's clout in the market. Because WeWork already controls so much demand for office space. They're, I think, the second biggest tenant in the city. They lease spaces all over the place. So if you're a landlord and you have an empty building and you want a tenant to come in, you're going to want to talk to WeWork, right? They're like the go-to source, basically now, the go-to source of demand for your office space. So that already gives WeWork a lot of clout, a lot of power in the market because they control so much demand. Now, if they also manage to build up a really big brokerage where they not only lease their own spaces, but they also take companies from elsewhere and funnel them to landlords, hypothetically, they could control so much more of the demand for office space in the city And that could give them a lot of pricing power, it could give them a lot of demand, and it also would mean that basically every landlord would want to be on WeWork's good side, because why would you want to pick a fight with a company that potentially can decide whether your building is going to be empty or full of tenants, right?
Right, absolutely. So I think this is a good transition point. This new brokerage business really seems to complete the narrative that WeWork is indeed in the real estate business. And I'm wondering how that might impact their relationships with brokers. I know just in March they had started a broker referral program where they would be offering larger commissions to brokers at companies like Cushman, JLL. So could you speak to that relationship and that dynamic there?
Yeah, so that to me is one of the big open questions about this new brokerage service. Like, how is it going to impact the relationship with non-WeWork brokers, like all the office leasing brokers in the city? So, in the past, WeWork, as you point out, has a partnership program where they pay brokers commissions if they bring clients to WeWork. Now, the question now is, if WeWork has its own brokerage that actually wants to win over clients and represent them and help them find spaces, are some of those brokers going to see that as a competition? Are they going to be worried that if they bring their clients to WeWork, WeWork's going to poach them, and then they're going to be WeWork's clients? Now, WeWork officially, they insist that this is not going to happen, that it'll be contractually impossible for them to poach any clients, that if you're a broker and you bring someone to WeWork, that's going to stay your clients. But to me, the question is, are brokers going to buy that, or are they just still going to be worried that there's a risk of them being poached?
As far as the structure of this venture, it's not technically a brokerage, right? Could you speak a little bit to why the company didn't structure it in that way?
Right, so they officially don't call it a brokerage company, they call it, I forget what the official is, it's like
an advisory firm?
An advisory firm, I think. As I understand it, this has to do with their ambitions for this ultimately. So right now it has brokers that get commissions if they bring companies into office buildings. In the long run, and this is according to Dave Fano, the Chief Growth Officer at WeWork, in the long run, they want to move that model away from the traditional brokerage model and make it more a advisory model where basically you don't get paid for every transaction, for every time you bring a company into an office building, but you're more of an advisor and you help that company with all their office-related needs. So for example, I'm a small company, I have 50 people, I will hire WeWork, and they will help find me an office, they will help me find insurance for my company employees, they will help me get legal services, they will maybe help me buy a coffee machine, get an office manager, whatever it is that you as a small company might need for your office space where you don't have the resources to do it yourself, your office advisor or your space advisor could do it for you. And that, I think is why they don't call it a brokerage, because ultimately they don't want to just be a brokerage company, they want to be a real estate space advisory company.
Right. So this actually sounds a lot like what Robert Revkin was talking about with Compass. So last week at an Inman conference, he was talking about how they're going to build out this platform where their brokers will not only be selling real estate, they'll be selling mortgage and title services, moving services, and even furniture at some point. Right. So what is it about these huge venture capital-backed firms that makes them so focused on diversification?
I think there's a couple of things. One is just these companies have raised a lot of money from venture investors, and venture investors generally expect fast growth. And if you're in a business like WeWork, it's difficult to grow very quickly because it takes time to lease new spaces, it costs a lot of money to build them out. It might take 6 months to a year from you signing a lease to you actually opening a new location. And then it may take many months more until it actually is profitable and makes enough money to sustain itself. So if you're WeWork or a company like WeWork, like a Knotel or any flexible office company, and you want to grow really quickly, why not just look at different business lines where you say, if it's so difficult or takes so much time to grow in this one business line, why not also expand into different business lines? And that allows you to sort of grow more quickly, have that wow effect of being like, oh, WeWork's growing at a dramatic pace, that might be more difficult to get just in co-working. I think that's one thing. So if you're a company like WeWork, right? Small companies come to you, they want an office space, and WeWork helps them find an office, but then it turns out that these companies actually have so many more needs that they don't really know how to handle. And from WeWork's perspective, it just makes a lot of sense to start offering more services to these companies. And this isn't a new thing, by the way. They've been doing this for years. So they ages ago decided to start offering insurance to their members. They've started offering HR services to their members. And that's all just a function of WeWork has these clients that need help with all these different things, and if they're in a WeWork, why shouldn't WeWork just like take care of all that, right? It's all new ways for the company to make money, and I think the brokerage business is just like the next in line there.
So at this point, Konrad, do you think WeWork can still claim it's not a real estate company?
All right, so WeWork always says they're not a real estate company, they're a physical social network, they're a community company, they're like Facebook basically, but with more of an office-based component. I think, last year they launched a real estate investment fund. Their core business is a real estate business. They rent space from landlords and sublet it for a profit. That's a real estate investment play, basically. And now they also have a real estate brokerage. So if you think about it that way, I think it's going to be a lot harder for WeWork to say that they're not a real estate company if so much of their business is made up of real estate. It's not just a real estate company, obviously. It, for example, invested in a wave pool company. It runs a grade school. It's, I can't even list all the businesses that WeWork is in at this point. But to me, it's pretty clear that its core business is real estate and that it's fundamentally a real estate company.
Thank you so much for your time, Konrad.
You're welcome.